Ryker Evans resigns, and who are the top 7 Seattle Kraken?
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Seattle hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, an accredited media member for Milano Cortina 2026. So we will cover any Kraken that are headed over that way. Also a contributor over at CBS Sports. Want to let you know, today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit FanDuel and the app today and start planning your future bets now. Okay, on today's show, we're going to talk about Ryker Evans resigning. He was one of our restricted free agents. Then I'm going to tell you about something that we have going on around the network on the Locked On NHL channel. It involves picking the top 100 players, but first we have to figure out who are going to be the Kraken representatives going into the 25-26 season. And then that got me thinking, and this is perfect timing because I was on hockeydb.com and I started pulling up. I was like, how many players have actually played for the Seattle Kraken? And so they have a whole database. I've been looking at stats, and we'll talk about that again, all in the lead up to something that we're going to do on the Locked On NHL channel. Ryker Evans resigns. This happened a few days ago, but as those who listen every day or my OGs, you know that we only do 3 shows in the off season, which we are in right now. So we haven't had an episode yet. But so Ryker Evans signs 2 years for a 2-year contract. It's a 2.05 million AAV, which will extend into the 26-27 season. Quote, Ryker took a positive step forward in his first full season in the NHL. Since turning pro, he's shown improvement year over year, and we're confident he'll take his game to another level next season. We're happy to have him under contract, says Jason Bottrell. And again, we can talk about some stats here in a little bit when it comes to other Seattle Kraken players, but in 24-25, Evans in his first full NHL season recorded 25 points, the breakdown 5 goals, 20 assists, 73 regular season games that ranked him 4th amongst Kraken blue liners in goals, assists, and points. He also led blue liners and ranked 3rd overall in hits with 123 and ranked 3rd overall in blocked shots. Evans currently ranks 5th in assists at 28 and 6th in points, 34, among defensemen from the 2021 NHL draft class. And so Ryker Evans was an interesting story. At times, he looked like one of our super defensemen. At other times, he looked a little bit lost out there. Overall, I do think this is a good move for the Seattle Kraken, bringing Ryker Evans back in. I am curious to see, though, if he can continue to improve. What are the pairings that we'll see him with? There's definitely more in the tank for Ryker. And we'll see if Lane Lambert and his staff, of course, which includes Jessica Campbell, if they can really bring out the best in Ryker. I think we are resigned as a team to really play into the youth movement, or so it seems. And Ryker is a huge piece of that. If you, look at how the Seattle Kraken are built, they are built with big, tall defensemen. Now, Ryker Evans is not the burliest of bodies that you'll see on the ice, but he is he still has good height. And so I think that I'm again curious to see how he continues to grow and blossom. He was very good for Coachella Valley. I mean, I think those days are gone, right? We're beyond that. But I think Ryker Evans, to me, potentially is, he's one of the guys that can be a glue player between the guys that are on the squad now, the more veteran elder statesmen, so to speak, but also some of the young guys that we might see coming up. He's 23 years old. Ryker Evans. I was looking up on NHL.com while I was looking here. I wanted to see how tall he is. Okay, 6 foot, 195. Yeah, that's definitely, we want to see that go up a little bit here. But I think that he represents, again, kind of a bridge guy. Matty Beniers, Shane Wright, I think, fall into that category. This is a Seattle Kraken team that we're going to see them skew younger sooner rather than later, or as soon as possible. If you know, you know. And maybe that's the move. I get the sense that Jason Botterill, at least his timeline, is to really get a good look at some young people. That can be tough for wins and losses this coming season for the Seattle Kraken. In theory, they have enough veterans with NHL experience to help maybe with some of those grittier games. That being said, if I'm honest, and I believe in having veterans on the squad, but the veterans that we haven't always come through. We've talked about Chandler Stevenson. I think there's a mixed review from what I can tell about Brandon Montour. I think there's promise there. I love what the likes of Jordan Eberle and Jaden Schwartz bring to the team. Jared McCann has been our consistent leading scorer. Adam Larson plays an important role. Jamie Alexiak plays an important role. And I think those two in particular, keeping them around, we've talked so much about Jamie Alexiak being on the trading block, or at least part of the rumors. I don't think that stops anytime soon. So we'll probably continue to talk about him. Just FYI, get ready for it. If you're not going to make those moves in the offseason, which I think we might be pretty much done as the Kraken organization, I think Ryker Evans probably the last cog that we needed to wrap up, especially thinking internal. Got the Kakko deal done, so that was a big one. I think that what you want, if you're not going to keep Alexiak, Larson, I think, probably has a longer run with us. Vince Dunn, I think, is going to stick around, but you need those guys to start pouring into Ryker Evans. And I don't want to say that they weren't. I think there have been circumstances, including Vince Dunn being out for a little bit, where Ryker needed to kind of step into that role immediately. If the Kraken can find their way to play healthy, which is a big if. I mean, hockey's a very physical sport. I hope that some of what's happening in practice, or maybe even more unofficially, is that Ryker Evans, among others, but Ryker Evans can really spend some time learning the business from some of these guys. And I'm very curious to see how he comes into training camp. What has he been working on this off season? Has he been able to put on any weight, get a little bit more brolic? I think putting on some weight would suit what we're looking for. 6 foot is not the tallest that you'll see on the ice, but it's good height. So, I think this is a good move. There's definitely more to refine from Ryker Evans, but he fits into, I think, what the overall vision is of this Kraken organization. They have been touted as an organization that has a good prospect pool, and I think we're going to see that pool put to the test. Ryker Evans, chief among the youths that I expect to get some time. Coming up next, though, does Ryker Evans crack our top 7 Kraken? Could we even build a top 100 Kraken? And again, I'll tell you a little bit more about what the Locked On NHL channel as a whole is going to do to come up with our best guess on who the top 100 players in the National Hockey League are at this very moment. We'll get into all of that coming up on Locked On Kraken. Mentioned it at the top of the show. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. Now, if you're an everyday or an OGer of the show, you know I love talking about future bets. Well, the folks over at FanDuel also love future bets, to the point that they have created a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is the event for you. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. That's right, August 26th. FanDuel, play your game. Hey, thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Whether we're your first listen, your midday listen, or your late night listen, thank you, thank you, thank you. Erica L. Ayala once again here for Locked On Kraken, your host since the very beginning and an accredited media member for Milano Cortina, the Winter Olympics 2026 in Italy. But we're going to talk about the Seattle Kraken, and I have been tasked with giving the top 7 Kraken players coming into the 25-26 season. And that is because, again, as an organization here at Locked On Kraken, but specifically the NHL channel, we are going to do a Locked On NHL Top 100. And so you may have seen this if you listen to other if you listen to other Locked On channels such as college and NFL, we have these top 100 lists. And now it's time for the NHL channel to get in on the action. So the first step is that we can give up to as few as 3 and as many as 7 players who we want in consideration for the top 100. So that's what the channel is doing. What I have to do is pick the top 7. And I probably have like my solid 3-4 tops. And I'm curious what the Locked On Kraken community thinks. Who are our top 7 players? And if you had to rank them, who is number 1? I think 1 and 2 are pretty obvious. Maybe interchangeable depending on if you like one thing versus the other. I think I'll just, spoiler alert, put this one out there. Adam Larson, if we're going top 7, is probably on the list, but where does he fall overall? Are there other defensemen that we would put before Adam Larson? Interesting. What do you value? So I'm gonna give you the top 2 names on today's episode because they're just so blatantly obvious, right? I think 4 through 7, and I want us to, as a community, come up with 7 names. I think 4 through 7 is more so interchangeable as far as where the players go. I don't know that we'll see a lot of variety, but I could see that some people maybe are hedging bets or giving folks the benefit of the doubt that they will be in the very near future the top 7, but that's a little bit different than who are the top 7 potentially coming into this season. Where do you rank Matty Beniers? Does Shane Wright make the list? Has Ryker Evans done enough? What about Yanni Newman? Is he one of the best Seattle Kraken players coming into 25-26, even though he's not necessarily guaranteed on this roster? Maybe. He just might be. So yeah, let's talk about this. Okay. So I'm going to do this exercise. If you're driving or out in public, just be careful. Whatever makes you comfortable. I mean, I definitely shout, scream, laugh, holler when I'm listening to podcasts or things in headphones, but do what's comfortable for you. Make sure you're safe if you are operating any heavy machinery, motorized vehicles, etc. But I want to try this. Again, I think 1 and 2 is pretty lock solid. Maybe interchangeable, but going into this season, I want to believe, Locked On Kraken viewers and listeners, that we are in sync, no pun intended. We are on one Accord. If you're watching on video, I might have tipped my hand a little. But on the count of 3, we're going to say out loud, or you can like think in your head, but I'm going to tell you who number 1 on the list is, and then tell me if we got it right. Okay? 1, 2, 3, Joey Daccord. I mean, right? It has to be Joey. It has to be Joey. There's another name that's up there, but it has to be going into this season. Who's our let me just give you what we were asked to do. Please fill out this form. I'm not showing the form or anything. I'm just reading this to you. Please fill out this form with at least 3-4 players from your current roster. Player 1 should be the best player on your roster. Player 2 should be the second best, and so on. So I'm ranking at least 4, and as many as 7 Seattle Kraken players. And Joey Daccord is on that. I mean, we've broken down Joey Daccord even with what he's doing across the NHL. Joey Daccord is our best player. And you know what? I love it because Joey's an awesome human being. I love interviewing him. I cannot wait to see him at training camp because that's when I get to spend Joey, I don't know that Joey knows who I am, other than he's, see me in the locker room from time to time. Does he know my name? Does he know the podcast? I mean, maybe not. Probably not. My point is that when I have a conversation with Joey, at least in that moment, he remembers your name when you interview him. If we're not rushed, which is again why I love talking at training camp, he'll sit down, ask a question, and mean it in earnest. Like, hey, we just got into this conversation a little bit about ASU, and then that led to something that wasn't so on the nose about hockey, but that we both, he's a pleasant delight. First winner of the Andy Ide Sports Award, that was given. We had an episode where we talked about that. But I mean, yeah, it's Joey. It's Joey, and I don't think it's particularly close. He is one of our top players. Of his 116 games started, only 7 of them were ever with Ottawa. So, he's got over 100 games started of his 126 games played for the Seattle Kraken. And, on average, his goals against average for his career is .276. His save percentage is a .906. He's got 5 shutouts, all of those with the Seattle Kraken. He's put in crazy minutes when he cut his teeth with Ottawa in 2018-19. Just one game, so 60 minutes. In 2020-21, over 400 minutes, just a touch over 400. He played 3,200. He played 3,295 full minutes of hockey last season alone for the Seattle Kraken. That's up from 21-22. He played 293 minutes. He played 248 the next season, 22-23. And then he played 28-32, 2,832 in 23-24, 3,295 full minutes, because there's a little carryover last season. Workhorse. I've talked about it. Are we working him too hard? But he was successful for us. He was at his average, his career average of .906 in saves. He was just almost exactly at his goals against average, 2.75 for last season alone. He's a 2.76 career GAA. He dipped a little when it came to save percentage from the season before, where he was at .916 in the 23-24 season. That's also his career high. But, he was better with goals against average. 2.46 is actually the lowest of his career. And that was in the 23-24 season with the Seattle Kraken. That was a very good year for Joey Dax. I think that he was almost as good. Eye test and my memory right now, and I guess I'm also looking at the numbers, so that helps. I think that it was close, but not exactly the same kind of lightning in a bottle that we had last season. But he was one of our top players. So did I get it right? Did you say Joey Daccord? Did you enjoy my random tangent on how much I love Joey? I might have edited some of that out just because I really ran on a tangent. But he's such a sweet human. And I just want good things for him. And I think the team should be more helpful and supportive of what he is trying to accomplish. And that's where Kraken number 2 comes in. If not for Joey Daccord, I think he's an obvious answer. He's got momentum, especially for the last 2 seasons. Do we want to do this again? 3, 2, 1? Okay. You might have said it already. Okay, we're going to do it again. Our second best player for the Seattle Kraken going into the 25-26 season. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Jared McCann. Did you get it? Or did you say someone else? I could see you saying someone else. Maybe you swapped McCann and Daccord. I could see that. I mean, you know what my choice is, and I stand on that. Would I be mad if someone said Jared McCann is our best player? No. Now, here's what I want to say. I do think Shane Wright is going to get probably a few folks saying his name. Maybe Monty, Vince Dunn. I already mentioned Larson. You know how I feel about Jaden Schwartz. You know how I feel about Jordan Eberle. I don't know if listeners and viewers are necessarily going to put them in the top 7, let alone the top 2, the top 3. But I think maybe there's some other names. I will say this. There's really no... I read you what our instructions are from the Locked On NHL network or the Locked On NHL channel as part of the Locked On NH or the Locked On podcast network. Hello. I told you it's pretty simple. Who's your best player? Who's your second best player? Rank them on and on and on. You can give up to 7 names. Cool. It is going to be the best players, another thing, on the roster. This is not all time. This is not the way I'm reading it. It's also not people who are not officially on the roster. So sorry, Yanni Newman. Sorry, Berkeley Catton. But we're doing this before the season starts, so we don't know if those guys are on the roster. I think there's a high chance that they will be, but they're not right now. If we were talking last year, is there a player that's no longer on the Kraken that maybe could make the top? I don't think the top 2. I still think the top 2 is interchangeable at best between Daccord and McCann. But would Oliver Bjorkstrand be on some people's lists? Maybe not if we were going off of last season. I still liked what he contributed. But, Andrei Burakovsky, no. Yanni Gourde, would he make some list? But my point is, this is who's going into the season with some juice, with some jam, with some momentum. And these are the players that are key to our winning. So let me know. Did you agree with my top 2? McCann and Joey Daccord. I will say Joey Daccord is a little bit of more of a here and now. Jared McCann is both a here and now, what have you done for me lately? But also, over time, he's, again, someone we can rely on when it comes to scoring. And if we just look at last season, he led the team in points, 61 points. He was, in the mix when it came to assists. He led the team in points. He led the team in assists, 61 points. Of his 61 points, 39 were assists. And when you look at goals last season, he was top 3 there behind Jaden Schwartz and Eeli Tolvanen. He had 22 goals. Matty Beniers had 20. Shane Wright had 19. And Brandon Montour had 18. So, I think even though, as I talked about a lot last season, McCann didn't have an easy road. I honestly don't think the Kraken made it easy for him to get those numbers, but he still got them. And he's been one of our top players over time. So, yeah, I feel confident saying McCann. He's definitely making my top 7. He's my second right now. But who are some other players? And then who are the all-time Kraken? We'll talk a little bit about that as we close out today's episode of Locked On Kraken. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and can help you reach the right candidates faster. And listen, I've been in a position where I know what it's like to not hire the right person. You do what you think is a good vetting job. You ask questions and you think you got it. And then you realize that when you're in the thick of it and you have an assignment due or a project you're working on and the person's just not quite up to task. Sometimes they just realize they want to be going in a different direction, whatever the case is. But the pressure's on because even though you can be supportive of someone else and wanting to move in a different direction, you still got to get your business up and running. And that's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs can come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now, so you eliminate any kind of fishing without bites, so to speak. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed from this podcast, Locked On Kraken. Terms and conditions apply. Are you hiring? Indeed is all you need. All right, Seattle Kraken fans, Joey Daccord, Jared McCann, easy top 2 for my list. Again, we are going to compile a top 100 throughout all of the NHL. And this is where things get a little dicey as your friendly host of Locked On Kraken. And we've had this conversation before. When it comes to the national media gaze, G-A-Z-E, the gaze, the look, how people perceive the organization, I don't know that there's really anybody who's going to get serious consideration for a top 100 list. Now, again, some of the guys that will make this list do not just benefit from having a good season last year and thus maybe some momentum coming into this year, but they're iconic names. I'm sure you can think of a few. Maybe someone who plays in the city of Philadelphia. Maybe someone who plays in the state of Pennsylvania. Maybe someone who just beat a long-standing record in the NHL. Just a few. Those are just a couple of examples. So does it matter that the Kraken, when it comes to even something like we're going to do, a top 100, does it matter? Should it matter to the organization, to the players? I don't know. To the fans? Probably to the fans. Should it matter to the fans that Kraken players don't crack top 100 lists? I mean, some people will be bothered by it, and I love it. Support your team. Do you, boo. At the end of the day, these are all very subjective because, human error, bias, all of those things come into account. Pure ignorance as in, I honestly watch more Kraken games, obviously, than I do any other team. I don't watch a lot of Metro Division games. I watch Metro teams when they play the Kraken. So, yeah, there's going to be some bias there, etc., and so many other reasons. So, on the one hand, I wouldn't get too worked up about the lists. But I want to tell you about the list because then we can talk about the list from the Kraken perspective. On the other hand, the list or the lack of Kraken representation on these kinds of lists, I think speaks to, again, how the organization is perceived. And I think there is a perception that this team lacks a true superstar. Is there, I mean, we talked about it. Who goes to All-Star last year for the Kraken in a not so great year? Who's deserving of All-Star? Who's deserving of representing one of the North American countries in the Olympics? You know, do the Kraken have players that are guaranteed locks when it comes to the hockey community? Or are we building a team around kind of P&V fill a hole guys, role players? I think we're still in the role player category, and we haven't made a move to get a top star. And I don't know that we're close to being a franchise that, not that we can't do it, but are we going to want to do it? Are we going to want to pay the cost, whether that's in salary cap, prospects, draft picks, etc.? What are we willing to do to get a top player that does become not just part of the conversation, but is without question, unequivocally, one of the top 100 players in the NHL? Can we manage that? How far away are we from being at that place? Last season makes me think we've got a lot of work to do. I think we have a lot of work to do. And now we have a new coach. So, you know, that's another thing that comes into account. But I just don't think that on a national level, people really know what to make of the Kraken for the same reasons that I said. If I was asked to, you know, someone kind of jabbed at me, I didn't really understand, but I also couldn't argue. Someone's like, you probably don't watch a lot of Montreal games. I was like, I absolutely don't. So maybe I said something ridiculous, but I watch Montreal when they play Seattle. And maybe the game before and the game after, just to kind of have some context. But I don't think that we're a part of that conversation. And again, do the lists matter in the grand scheme? Like, if we only thought about the list, no. Like, we're going to do this. It's a fun exercise. It's something to talk about. But in talking and preparing you for the list and preparing myself for the list, I've realized, yeah, well, okay, but if we're not perceived this way, you know, what do GMs talk about when they talk about the Kraken? What stands out to them when it comes to our roster? What are red flags, you know, when it comes to agents, maybe who have clients that are going to be free agents soon? What do people like about the Kraken? What's not working? And, you know, you can talk about the X's and O's, you can talk about the stats and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, some of what we're talking about now, it does matter. It helps with recruitment. And the Kraken have a new facilities. It's, you know, Seattle is a city that you can sell as an attraction. So are we going to build a roster that supports that? I think we have to. I don't believe in Team Tank. I really don't. I do think this coming season is the first of probably a hurry up and wait, which is so interesting, because why did you need a coaching change to be able to do that? But again, I think philosophically, there were differences that apparently couldn't be reconciled, which is why Dan Bylsma is out and Lane Lambert is in. Okay, but who else is on this list? I think Brandon Montour going into next season, we can talk about him. We can talk about Matty Beniers. I think we can talk about Vince Dunn. I absolutely think Jaden Schwartz should be in consideration. This is where things maybe get a little interesting. Do we have Shane Wright on that list? I think some of you would absolutely put him in a top 7. I think he probably makes my top 7, but I want to hear from y'all first. Again, those who are very active, I get it. Y'all love Shane. I love Shane. I love his game. I still see a lot of growth in his game. And so does he come into the season as one of the top 7 players on the entire roster? I'm not sure. I want to look at the numbers. Again, HockeyDB, I will show you in a minute what I pulled from them. I think he's super close if he's not there already, but I just want to do a little recon. Where does Adam Larson fit on this list? Should he be higher on the list, lower on the list? What's the value added that he provides defensively? And those things are hard to quantify, and we've talked about that on the show before, but I think Larson probably deserves a look. And then what are you looking at? Are we only looking at points? What kind of advanced stats do we look at? What are we concerned about? Are we concerned about how they performed last year? And if they didn't perform well last year, does that mean that they shouldn't make the list this year? But what if they didn't perform last year, but they performed all the other years that they were with the Kraken? But where is the cutoff? I'm so fascinated by this. Eventually, I'll tell you the process. I'll be completely transparent with a process that I selected and who my top 7, because I'm going to do 7. I'm going to do 7. I gave you the top 2 because I really don't think I'd be shocked if y'all said anything else. If we're being honest, not like who's your favorite, not who has the most promise, but who are the best 2 players from the Kraken from the Kraken roster going into 25-26. I'd be surprised. Maybe Vince Dunn makes it up there for some folks. It's got to be Joey Dax and Jared McCann, right? So those are the first 2. Where we go from there, interesting. I don't know that you can really give Eberle a good shot. I don't know that he makes the top 7 either way, but maybe he does. But HockeyDB.com, they have they have an all-time list that you can check out. All-time Kraken list, all-time player list. And so what I did is I took the data from there and I made a running list of all-time Kraken players, and we haven't even cracked 80 total players. I think we will this season, but I wasn't including the additions this year because they don't have Seattle Kraken stats yet. But we should be beyond 80 players all time that have played for the organization. But it's interesting seeing some of these callbacks, seeing some guys who, were not on the team for very long, and to kind of get a look to see, all right, who do we think is going to make this team and be the future of the Kraken? So that's something I want to talk about. Do we have an all-time Kraken list? And if I made an all-time Kraken list, would that be any different than the list that I'm going to do in the suggestions that I have for Kraken representatives for our top 100 list? I think, honestly, an all-time Kraken list and whatever list of 7 I come up with are probably the same, right? Is there a player on the Kraken for me from a Moxie perspective? If that was a stat, it would be Ryan Donato. But if I looked at Ryan Donato's numbers with the Kraken versus numbers for players that are still on the Kraken, does Ryan Donato bump someone off? Probably not. I mean, in my heart he does, but probably not. So that's interesting. All of these top 100s, where do the Kraken fit when it comes to the rest of the NHL? Let me know. Do you think we'll have anyone on that top 100 list? I will say it's probably our best bet is Joey Daccord, Jared McCann, probably Vince Dunn. Maybe Brandon Montour. But I think it's got to be Joey with the best chance to catch the eye of people who don't cover the Kraken day in and day out like we do here on Locked On Kraken. But it's going to be fun. Where does Matty Beniers fall on that list? He's probably middle of the pack when it comes to the top 7 for me. Where exactly I place him, I've gone back and forth a few times because last season versus the year before that, then look at his career stats cumulatively. Like I've told you, I believe that 2025 is a year of Beniers. So I'm pretty sure that my rankings will reflect that. But in that case, it's a little bit more, it's a hybrid of looking at what we know he's capable of, right? Versus what we think he'll do next season. So that's a little bit different, where McCann and Joey Dax, I think those are straightforward. You can look at it any way you want, but those two are the best two players on the team, right? How are defenders, how are blue liners ranked and valued? There's certain blue liners that will be ranked pretty high. They also happen to be the defensemen that score the most, probably. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know. I'm curious. I always think these lists are interesting. They almost always make me mad. Let me reframe. I find myself getting a little worked up over these lists, probably more than I should, but I also find them as great bullet points and topics of conversation for us here on Locked On Kraken, so we can look at those lists and spin it with a Kraken perspective. So I gave you my top two. I gave you a hint at probably who the 7 players I'm going to list are. Once I have submitted my final list, they will be ranked 1 through 7. We will talk about that for sure. And then, of course, we have to talk about this top 100 that will be coming probably in September. So we've got a little bit of, we're a ways away. We've got to go through the rankings and all of that stuff. So we'll probably talk about it in September. If it comes out sooner, I will let you know, but you'll know for sure. And then I want to hear from you. We still have listener questions that you've been sending in and your bold predictions and things of that nature. So I want to get to that on an upcoming show, but I also want you to drop a line. Who do you think are the top 7 Kraken players as we enter the 2025-26 season, which is also the 5th season of the organization? Who are your top 5? Did you agree with me on Joey Daccord and Jared McCann? I want to hear from you. So you can comment if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. You can also comment over on TikTok. We'll have some short clips from the episodes that will be posted there. That's Locked On Kraken on TikTok. And if you want to find me on Blue Sky, you can look up elindsay08. That's also my Instagram handle if you want to hop on IG. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. And we hold fast. We stay true. And loud and proud we say, let's go Kraken. And I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.